Hello, welcome to Biology, the scientific study of life. The life cycles of mosses and other bryophytes are dominated by the gametophyte stage. Bryophytes are presented today by three phyla of small herbaceous non-woody plant: liverworts, phylum Hepatophyta, hornworts, phylum, and mosses, phylum Bryophyta. Liverworts and hornworts are named for their shapes, plus the suffix worts from the Anglo-Saxon herb. Mosses are the most familiar bryophytes, although some plants commonly called mosses are not really mosses at all. These include Irish moss, red seaweed, lichen, club mosses, seedless vascular plants, and Spanish mosses, lichens in some regions, and flowering plants in others. Note that the terms Bryophyta and bryophyte are not synonyms. Bryophyta is the formal taxonomic name for the phylum that consists solely of mosses. The term bryophyte is hornworts and mosses. As noted previously, it has not been established whether these three groups form a clade. Systematists also continue to debate the sequence in which the three phyla as bryophytes evolved. Bryophytes acquired many unique adaptations after the evolutionary split from the ancestors they share with living vascular planets. Nevertheless, living bryophytes slightly reflect some traits of the earliest plants. The oldest known fossils of plant fragments, for example, include tissues that look very much like the interior of liverworts. Researchers are eager to discover more parts of these ancient plants to see if this resemblance is reflected more broadly. Bryophyte gametophytes, unlike vascular plants in all three phyto or bryophyte phyla, the gametophytes are largely and longer living than sporophytes. As shown in this moss life cycle in this video, notice that sporophytes are typically present only part of the time. If bryophyte spores are dispersed to a favorable habitat, such as moist soil or tree bark, they may germinate and grow into gametophytes. Germinating moss spores, for example, characteristically produce a mass of green branched or cell-thick filaments known as protonema, from the Greek protoverse and pneuma threads. A protonema has a large surface area that enhances absorption of water and minerals in favorable conditions. A protonema produces one or more buds, each with an apical meristems, with that generates the gametoproducing structure known as gametospore or gametophore. Gamete-bearer, which means together a protonema and a gametophore make up the body of a moss gametophyte. Bryophyte gametophytes generally form ground-hugging carpets and are at most only a few cells thick, such thin body parts could not support a tall plant. Second constraints on the height of bryophytes is the absence in most species of vascular tissue, which is required for long distance transport of water and nutrients. The thin structure of bryophyte organs makes it possible to distribute materials without specialized vascular tissue. Some mosses, however, including the genus Pleutrichum, have conducting tissues in the center of their stems, and a few of these mosses can grow as tall as 2 meters as a result. Plant biologists are trying to determine whether these conducting tissues are homologs with vascular plant tissues or are the result of convergence or convergent evolution. The gametophytes are anchored by delicate rhizoids, which are long tubular single cells in liverworts and hornworts. or filaments cells in mosses. Unlike roots, which are characteristic of vascular plants, rhizoids are not composite of tissues, lack specialized conducting cells, and do not play a primary role in water and mineral absorption. Mature gametophytes produce gametes in gametophagia covered by protective tissue. A gametophyte may have multiple gametophagia. Eggs are produced singly in vase-shaped archegonia, whereas Antheridia each produce many sperms. Some bryophyte gametophytes are bisexual, but in mosses, the female and male gametophytes flagellated sperms swim through a film of water toward eggs, entering the archegonia. In response to chemical attractants, eggs are not released but instead remain within the bases of archegonia. After fertilization, embryos are retained within archegonia. Layers of placental transfer cells help transport nutrients to the embryos as they develop into sporophytes. Bryophytes, sporophytes. Although bryophytes, sporophytes are usually green and photosynthetic when young, they cannot live independently. They remain attached to their parental gametophytes, from which they absorb sugars, amino acids, minerals, and waters. Bryophytes have the smallest and simplest sporophytes of all extant plant groups, consistent with the hypothesis that larger and more complex sporophytes evolved only later in vascular plants. A typical sporophyte consists of a foot, a seta, and a sporonegium embedded in the archiphonia. The food absorbs nutrients from the gametophyte. The seta, plural seta, or stalk conducts these materials to the sporangium, also called a capsule, which uses them to produce spores by meiosis. One capsule can generate up to 50 million spores. Notice this figure. Et voila. Notice that the meiosis here, 50 million spores. In most mosses our seta becomes elongated, enhancing spore dispersal by elevating the capsule. An immature capsule has a protective cap of gametophyte tissues called the clitora, which is shed when the capsule is mature. In most moss species, the upper part of the capsule features a ring of tooth-like structures known as the peristome. Notice this figure. The peristome is specialized for gradual spore discharge, taking advantage of produce wind or periodic wind gusts that can carry spores long distances. Hornwort and most sporophytes are larger and more complex than those of liverworts. Both hornworts and most sporophytes also have specialized spore or specialized pores called stomata, singular stomata or stoma, which are also found in all vascular plants. These pores support photosynthesis by allowing the exchange of CO2 and O2 between the outside air and the sporophyte interior. Stomata are the main avenues by which water evaporates from the sporophytes in hot to dry conditions. The stomata can also minimizing water loss. The fact that stomata are present in mosses and hornworts but absent in liverworts suggests that possible hypotheses for their evolution of if liverworts are the deepest branching lineage. Okay. Of land plants, then stomata evolved once in the ancestor of hornworts, mosses, and vascular plants. If hornworts are the deepest branching lineage, then stomata may have evolved once and then been lost in the liverworts lineage, or perhaps hornworts acquired stomata independently of mosses and vascular plants. This question is important to understanding plant evolution because stomata play a crucial role in the success of the vascular plants. Notice these footages on the facing page illustrates examples of gametophytes and sporophytes in the three bryophytes phyla. Ecological and economic importance of mosses. Wind dispersal of lightweight spores has distributed mosses around the world. These plants are particularly common in the diverse in moist forests and wetlands where they form habitats for tiny animals. Some moss species even inhabit such extreme environments as mountain tops, tundra, and deserts. Many mosses exist in very cold or dry habitat because they can survive the loss of most of their body water, then hydrate when moisture is available. Few vascular plants can survive the same degree of desiccation. Moreover, phenolic compounds in most cell walls absorb damaging levels of radiation present in deserts or at high altitudes and latitudes. One wetland, most genus Sycynum or peat moss is especially widespread, forming extensive deposits of partially decayed organic material known as peat. Puggy regions dominated by this moss are called peat bogs because of the resistant phenolic compounds embedded in its cell walls. Syphaginum does not decay rudely. In addition, it secretes compounds that may reduce bacterial activity, low temperatures, and nutrients levels in peat bogs also inhibit decays. As a result, bugs can preserve mummifieds corpses for thousands of years, as it's seen here. Notice that worldwide, in an estimated 400 billion tons of organic carbon are stored in peat. This carbon reservoir helps stabilize global atmospheric CO2 concentrations. Peat has long been a fuel source in Europe and Asia, and it is still harvested for fuel today, notably in Ireland and Canada, because peat moss has large cells that can absorb some 20 times the moss's weight in water. It also serves as a soil conditioner, and it's used for baking plant roots during Shemp's current over harvesting of Syphaginum may reduce its beneficial ecological effects. Notice this figure, a tolland man, a bog mummy dating from, notice the also acidic oxygen poor conditions produced by Syphaginum can preserve human or other animal bodies for thousands of years. Notice that.